Sir.
Motion to open up the select board's meeting.
Second.
February 5th and February 13th meetings. Approval.
I make a motion to approve the meetings from February 5th and the ambulance one on February 13th. You can't.
No, I can't do the 13th. But
Second.
So,
All right, so let's do the 5th first and then the 13th.
yeah.
Okay. February 5th minutes.
I make a motion to approve.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to approve the February 13th Brimfield ambulance meeting.
Second.
Abstain.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Stevensbrook update.
Okay. I met with Mr. Sickles this morning, me and Jen, and what we need to do is obviously get to a definitive number, something that he's on board with and something that the select board can endorse. And what I told him is that, you know, I wrote up a quick proposal in terms of what I think our baseline should be in terms of a starting number for the purchase price. I don't want to talk specific numbers because we're in the middle of negotiating, and I don't want to reveal potential strategies to somebody that might get feeding information back to Mr. Sickles. But conceptually, we're pretty far apart in terms of a selling price right now. Okay. And I don't know if he's just positioning himself from a negotiation perspective, or if he truly believes that the property is worth what he thinks it's worth. I'll tell you right now, what he wants for the property is something that I would never recommend that we pay. We have an appraisal, and basically I want to start off with the appraisal as a baseline for negotiation. But he told me that he would get back to me by tomorrow. And if he got back to me with, I'm going to present to the select board whatever he gets back to me. I may not recommend what he does, but I mean, for example, if he says $5,000 an acre, something that I could never go along with, but I'll present it to the select board just so we're all on the same page. But I think the next step would be, after I've gotten in touch with Sickle, our next meeting, which is about 2 weeks from now, we should probably schedule an executive session, because I should have specific numbers by then in terms of what he would be willing to accept as a selling price. Go into executive session. I'll ask the board to approve it, or if I don't think that we should approve it, I'll say I don't. I think we should just reject it and send it back to him. But I think bottom line is that I'll be talking to Sickles in the next couple of days. I'll have definitive numbers by the time we meet again. We should schedule an executive session.
Our next meeting, just so you know, is a week from today.
Okay, that's even better.
Okay, because we're making up last week's
Okay,
today.
no, that's
okay.
even better. So that's sort of the update. Bottom line is that we're pretty far apart on price right now. I don't know if we're going to be able to come together. You don't know. That's where I am with this.
Well, the one thing I want to say about that $50,000 grant we got,
Yeah.
I got the paperwork on it. That has to be spent by the last day of June.
Oh, it has to be spent?
Spent, or we can't have the money. It has to go towards this, so it would have to be done by
Okay,
then.
well.
That gives us a few months, but just so you know.
But
It's going to be tight.
I'm more concerned about rolling this out to the community and doing some educational meetings and making sure that the town is on board with this project, so that when we bring it to the town meeting, assuming that we endorse the specific provisions that he's proposing, that the town knows what's going on and they're on board with us. I don't want to run into a situation where we have people questioning what we did and why we're doing it, and questioning the credibility of the select board. I want to make sure that we've marketed this as comprehensively as we can, assuming that we can agree to something.
Yeah, so that's what really all has to read on that. Yeah.
So that's right. So I guess make a motion for an executive session to go over the Stevens project at our next meeting.
Second.
On.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry.
It's all right. I did it before. Zoning Bylaw Committee.
So there's been a zoning bylaw committee, but it hasn't been active because it's supposed to be somebody from the planning board, is how it's set up, the town clerk, and the town administrator.
But is there a chairman now?
There's nobody on it right now at all.
I guess
They haven't done anything.
I think we really need to get on top of this because I've got some concerns as far as the current zoning bylaws are concerned, specifically regarding alternative energy production in marijuana growing facilities.
Well,
Let me finish. Because even though we have a specific zone for those purposes, the fact is that if somebody brought this to court, I would think that we could be challenged because our zoning only limits that kind of activity to basically one parcel of land, the commercial district right off of Route 84. So they could invalidate our restrictions and allow for those kind of facilities because our zoning bylaws are so restrictive. So I think I made my point. Go ahead.
Right, but I'm in a planning board meeting after this, and on our agenda for tonight, work on bylaws for signage and cannabis, so we're going to address that tonight.
But to me, we got to get these things up to date, and that's the first task. And we got to get somebody working on it.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it should be this bylaw committee, but we got to get people involved, and that's their first task.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. The planning board is going to start working on some of them.
But to me, this is bringing the bylaws up to date is almost, I think, a function of the town clerk.
Not the zoning bylaws, though.
The regular
bylaws, yeah.
With the regular bylaws, I think, are the town clerk, and they should be brought up to date. And the zoning bylaws, we need to get somebody working on that so they're brought up to date.
So that should be the planning board and the zoning board.
Bylaw committee, you mean? Because we had a bylaw committee, and they were doing a lot of work, and
They were reviewing them and stuff.
I don't know where they left off because Kelly was sort of spearheading that, and I'm not sure where we ended up before she left.
So
They left off where it was passed back to Sharon, and Sharon was outsourcing it because it's just too large of a job.
Outsourcing just the
Zoning.
but the transmittal of a PDF file to a Word file, or who's they working on it? What were they doing?
Reviewing all the past articles
So who
and updating
do we outsource it to?
a company that does it professionally.
I personally don't see why it should take more than 2 weeks to update our zoning bylaws to what is current.
Well, yeah, in terms of updating what's in place already, I agree with you. But in terms of changing the bylaws to
That's a different story.
that's my biggest concern. I mean, your concern I agree with as well, but my big concern is exposure liability on the town's part.
But-
Yeah, they've got to be updated too.
Yeah, I mean, but to me, updating them and come up with a suggestion is the planning board.
To be perfectly honest, I don't care who's
Who's
doing
doing
it.
it.
I just want it done.
Yeah, and so
According to Jack, if I may say, he said in order to get the bylaws where they need to be properly, it's going to take a full-time person and months to get it to where it needs to be and functioning and on the website correctly, properly, appropriately. From birth to death of it, finalized, all of that, reviewed by lawyers. It's time consuming.
It still has to go to town
Always.
meeting too.
It has to go to town meeting, it has to be reviewed by lawyers, it's very time consuming. And you get a board or a committee together, that's great, and we could do the research and pull all the articles that have been approved, and we make sure they have been inserted properly, and then how often are we meeting? How often are we meeting? Once a
Right.
month, twice a month?
It's about-
So this is a large undertaking.
Yep.
So you're saying it would be a lot more than 2 weeks according to Jack?
According to Jack. Now, I've never been on a zoning committee, so I can't speak from experience. I'm just going by what Jack, and Jack he's the only person in this building that knows the intricacies of the bylaw right now. And he has to go back and reference where those changes were, because they haven't been inserted all along.
Right.
It's been dropped, so just keep that in mind. And I think a committee is a great place to start, but it's just going to be time consuming.
And once again, my concern with the committee, which is sort of what I had suggested originally, but my concern is to actually get people to show up to the meetings. And I mean, bylaws, it's not just sitting around talking about theoretical policies. This is a hands-on project.
Yes.
So you need somebody or people who actually understand bylaws and how to
Right.
draft them and how to order the bylaws so that they make sense. So we need somebody who's familiar with that. I'm losing my voice.
Yes, you are.
I think we have to get both tasks going.
So what do you? So
Do we know who it was outsourced to, Janine?
I believe Sharon had a company in mind, and I believe she left before it was completely executed, but I believe it was the jurisdiction of the town clerk to handle it. So either she gets a committee together, or she outsourced it. She chose to outsource it. She didn't have the time to dedicate to it. And they were having a hard time forming when they did have the committee. So Kelly said that she wanted to do it, but then she got wrapped up and busy with other things as well. So they decided, I guess they both decided, it's to my understanding, Sharon was outsourcing it with the blessing of Kelly.
All right. Can you reach out to Sharon and see
course.
when?
Absolutely.
Where it ended up?
and maybe the quickest way to solve this problem is to get them involved, whoever it was she was outsourcing this to, at least in terms of bringing the current bylaws up to date.
I think
Well-
she contacted them and they were waiting to hear back, I believe is where it was.
So it
That's
never
the
really
end
got
point
executed.
right now.
Yeah. So let's
And we got to
find,
find, well, we've also got to find out what's it going to cost,
what's what?
what it's going to cost.
Yeah, I know.
With your permission, I'll try and look into it, and see how to get them updated.
That would
No problem, be looking into it.
be good.
And do we want, there's no chairman to the bylaw committee right now, as far as I know.
Well, that's, I would think that the committee itself would appoint the chair. So, I just think that it's been so long since they've been in business, since they've actually been actively meeting that,
Because Kelly's been gone since what?
yeah.
June?
Yeah,
June.
something like that.
And
So-
Sharon's been gone.
But that's why, to get people involved and have people who aren't professionals dealing with bylaws to attempt to tackle this project, I think might not be practical. If we have somebody that we can outsource this to, at least we know we're starting from a good point when we update the bylaws.
Yep.
So the
So
motion to reach out to a third party that Sharon had contacted to clean up.
To
the bylaw.
update the bylaws.
Yeah.
Yes.
clean up.
But the second activity, same thing?
No, the second activity I think would be to have the issues that I'm concerned with are zoning bylaws. Marijuana growing,
Yep.
alternative energy. I'd like to see the board readdress the frontage and acreage requirements that got ignominiously voted down at the last town meeting. I'd like to see that passed. So those are, at least as a starting point, my top priorities.
Okay. I will bring it up at the planning board meeting.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on bylaws committee? Okay.
Somebody gonna second that?
What?
Nobody seconded that.
Oh, second.
Thank you.
I'll third it. That's a unanimous
All in
vote.
favor? Official designation of posting areas for the agenda.
Yeah. I don't see what's wrong with what we're doing already. I mean, we're posting it to the board out there, we're posting it to outside the select board office, and we're posting it to the internet, so.
I'd like to see the internet be the first.
See,
I'm against that, only because we have a lot of people in town who don't have computers and don't have the internet. And if the internet goes down,
yeah,
we're screwed.
Then we have to reschedule the meeting. I don't know. Plus, there's nothing. If you look at the laws, I know the Mass General laws with regard to these kind of things are a little antiquated, but at the end of the day, I think if you read through the laws, they talk about physical posting. I mean, I think internet posting is great and everyone's doing it, but it's secondary to what I think is primarily required under the law, which is posting to a physical spot. I mean, why would you want to use the internet as a...
I think there's more people on the internet, and putting it on the town website, they get automatically notified once it's posted if they've put an interest in seeing the Board of Selectmen's meetings.
Well, can we do that now?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
But I'm saying, we can do it now, but I'm saying that ought to be our primary posting tool.
But I mean, if we're doing it now and it's not broken, and it doesn't seem to be broken,
But I don't want to make it our primary
Oh, no,
posting
that's what I'm saying.
I'm going to leave
If
it
it's
where
not
it is.
if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. And I
Yeah.
don't think it's broken.
How about this? If we do the primary posting is the board, just like it is.
Mm-hmm.
Secondary is the board upstairs. Third is the website. And I'd like to also see us add as a fourth site the community center.
I don't have a problem with that.
Who's posting at the community
Community
center?
center.
Send her an email. And have
Just have them post it.
Brenda
Let
post it.
post it herself.
I think the town clerk is responsible for postings in official areas. You make that an official area, and then Ginger's gonna be responsible for driving down there and posting.
She can email.
But then
She can't. If she has to physically post it herself, that's
then-
the way it's written.
And then my question is to anyone here: if we post the select board meeting at the community center, would all agendas have to be posted at the community center?
I think they could do it as a courtesy, but if you make it an official area, then the all boards clerk, who's responsible for posting, as well as the town clerk, they would be responsible for driving down there and posting it.
Well, can you do a little more research into what the additional responsibilities would be if we, in what our flexibility is in terms of posting at the community center? Do we have to post all the agendas, or can we?
No, they don't. I already know the answer
Do
to
you
that.
know
They
the
don't.
answer to
Yeah,
that?
they
Okay.
don't. They can post whatever agendas they want.
All right.
They can pick and choose what agendas they post. I mean, it's up to Brenda, really, because that's not an official posting area. So it's like typically up to Brenda.
Well, I think it makes sense to have it posted at the community center. There's a lot of exposure there. But to make it an official area,
Yeah.
that could potentially get us in trouble if we don't post it.
Fine,
So, I mean-
strike it, make it as a courtesy.
Yeah, so as a courtesy,
Yeah.
we could ask Brenda to post the select board
And I
agenda.
still think that Ginger could send an email as
Well,
a
that's
courtesy.
what I'm saying. She could, we'll have it
Well,
electronically.
let's let her find out if
Yeah, well, just get some more information, Janine, and
Yes.
I mean, my tendency is to allow to do it, allow them to do it or ask them to do it as a courtesy, but I don't have enough information to deliberate on whether or not.
So we want to wait till next session
Yeah, so.
to make it.
Yeah,
proposal?
Yeah.
Okay, it's
6:20, but can we just do the, all right, we are doing that, right? We can't do that.
no.
And how about we just do the warrant sign, and then we can go into that, and then we don't have to go back to anything.
Well, I'd like to make a statement about that.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
We're going to move to appointments, and we found out about 30 minutes ago that we were not able to appoint to elected positions. So I make a motion to table the appointment of the library board trustees.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And warrant signed?
Payroll was $94,619.85, and accounts payable was $13,678.40.
So do I close our meeting and open the other one? Or?
Huh?
So do I close our meeting and open the other
No,
one?
you just go right into it.
I'd like to now open the joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the LOC at 6:21.
All right, so
I'm sorry.
what we want to do tonight is review the dredging plans for the feasibility study. If we remember right, both boards were supposed to get together and talk about some of the things that they wanted to do, and we did that last week. And help me if I forget something, but the first thing that we were thinking about was writing a warrant for the engineering of the causeway, because we can't really propose doing the work on the causeway without knowing how we're doing it, and we feel sort of that the old reports aren't new enough to do
They're
that.
old reports.
You know, I mean, the thing that I worry about personally is, we've spent this $90,000-something on a feasibility study, and just to have that be a report like the other ones that we've done sitting on a shelf doesn't do us any good.
For $90,000, we should be able to at least take it to the next step.
And according to the engineers, the two priorities to start would be the stormwater management program and the causeway. And many of...
According to engineers, what engineers?
The engineers that did the dredging feasibility.
Okay.
Malone and...
Yeah.
What's his
No,
name?
that's-
Right.
I just-
So, talking it over at our last meeting, we felt that step one would be engineering monies to do the causeway. And that benefits the whole town. It just doesn't benefit the south and north basin of the lakes. It benefits the whole town.
So you want to do a warrant for an engineer to do what it needs to be done, and
An
then
engineering of the causeway repair.
okay, and then we'd have to do the repair itself.
Right, right.
So yeah, when you look at the two items, because there's two, there's stormwater management and there's the causeway issue.
Right.
The causeway issue is the simplest solution to positively affect the waterway itself.
Right.
And it has a lasting effect on that roadway in the town and a bunch of other things. The stormwater management program is a 1, a 5, a 10, a 15-year plan and execution over the long term. And until we can get more solutions on the potential publicizing of roads from it being in private, you're really not going to be able to manage that with any level of success or any other funding other than what comes out of the budget.
Right.
So we felt like the attacking the causeway issue will stop the sediment buildup in the South Basin, which we found in the feasibility study, and then ultimately maybe can provide a little more equalization between the two lakes, and they may even help the dam issue, the dam in the long run.
So with the
So who writes it?
engineering,
Us?
with the engineering, the causeway basically involve opening up the culvert, putting another one in there. Is that
Right.
that-
basically
That's
I mean,
what-
that's
that's
what the
what
engineers have to
said.
determine is just what has to be done to alleviate what the issue, one of the number one issues were from that report. The other thing too is that the causeway is in just such disrepair as a roadway itself, and so that's why we thought that would be the first project that we would try to tackle, is because it's not just
what's under the causeway, it's what's on top of the causeway is the roadway too. So again, it's something that not just benefits the lake, but benefits everyone, because everyone uses that causeway every day.
Right.
I think
But
that
of course, the
provides
first
That
step
was the last
is
one.
to have engineers go out and tell us what it's gonna cost us, what has to be done. And then, of course, then the second part would be going out to bid for a contract.
So, then what you think about then is a warrant to fund the engineering study?
Yes.
And then
Step
the
one.
next year would
Step
be
one.
to actually potentially,
it.
whatever we need to do,
To-
we'll figure out how to fund that.
Right.
So-
But the question to Ernie is this would have to go out to bid, I would assume, because
Yes.
it's engineering, so, okay.
So,
So
I-
who writes
but-
the warrant and who, do we write the warrant or do we work with
Well, we'd have to
Janine
get the
write it?
bids first before we could do the warrant, right?
well, I have an
But-
additional thought to that. The kind of monkey
Well, wait,
wrenches
one
it
second,
may,
Jim.
may change your answer.
In one of the studies, Caitlin had said that what did they say that engineering would be approximately?
They do have like a base engineering cost in the feasibility
But
study,
the
but
dredging
it
had
doesn't,
an estimate to do that.
it's an estimate, but it's an estimate only. It doesn't include engineering cost. It's a baseline estimate. And
What was the baseline estimate?
did we write it down in our notes? I can pull it up for. I did not write down. Let me pull it up real quick.
Because don't you, when you write the
300,000?
warrant, don't you have to
300.
put a
You've got
dollar
a
amount in
ballpark
there?
number.
I don't,
Right.
I don't know. If that-
But,
Yeah, you do.
Well, we can find it.
but, quite frankly, this is not the time to present an engineering study on the causeway.
Why not?
We haven't paid for the dredging study.
I wouldn't
We-
pay until you gave the final report, Ernie. They haven't even given us the final report yet.
They're paid. Now we have to pay a $100,000 loan.
Well,
Well, here's-
if you wait, you're going to have to do it eventually anyway.
But we're trying to do the Sickles property. You want to go in with $500,000 for Sickle property and $100,000 for
Well, let me ask you this:
engineering study.
is the sickle property as important to the assets in this town as the lake is and the causeway? It's our main road.
It's a debate on priority, that's for sure.
Well, we can at least get a proposal. We can at least go out and bid the project, get a proposal from the engineering company that we choose.
My only thought with that is you're going to go and you're going to go through this whole process and it's going to end up filed away. Like if we go forward with the causeway, I think it should be seriously, not once again get another study saying something that the town already knows and then it being filed away. Because
Well, that's the problem with studies. I agree with you, and but that's my big concern with the $100,000 we just spent on the dredging study.
Well,
Which is
here-
what you just said, Chris, is that it gets filed away, and I don't want to spend $100,000.
Well, we're trying not to do that, though.
Right,
We're trying to
exactly.
take their
So
recommendations and do
what I'm
something.
hearing is you guys are suggesting what the next steps should be.
Correct.
And it makes
Correct.
sense that the next steps would be involving the causeway. So then what's the step to move forward on that? It would be to get bids and to find out what it is that they'd be doing for us and a cost associated with that, so that we know what we're dealing with in terms
So
of.
you're saying do an RFP for the engineering and put off the warrant until next year?
I don't think it's the timing to do the engineering.
So here's my monkey.
You're going to have to, at that, what do you think it's going to be? 50, 100,000?
$3 million to do a
do it.
causeway.
To do the
That's to
causeway,
do
but
the
that's-
That's
causeway.
the
What, the
causeway, and that's an
engineering?
estimate. And
No,
that's
but that's to doing
that's
the
not the
That's
causeway.
to do it.
We want to know what the engineering
You're looking at 10
study.
to 15%.
They have a 15. Yeah, I think at the meeting they said
So-
15% on top of that.
That's $150,000. You're probably going to have to advertise in the paper, may even get three sealed bids, go to Masscom. You're looking at like a 3 or 4 month process.
But here's the monkey wrench that I threw in with. It's a much easier step. I'm always a proponent of if you have a question and you don't know the answer, you ask the people that are the smartest at it, and those people aren't in this room. So I have contacted the United States Army Corps of Engineers. They do roughly, on average, 200 million cubic yards of dredging annually, and they do somewhere between 100 and 500 waterway projects. I have a contact. I'm friends with the district chief of construction for the Mobile district. He can get me in contact with the guy for our New England district. Why not go to the people that are smartest at it?
But we have to follow Mass General Law on getting quotes.
But
and the
here's the
dollar
thing.
volume.
But here's the thing with it. So as you're paying for an engineering study on an RFP to get 3 sealed or 5 sealed bids from people that you don't know from a hole in the wall, you can pay a management fee to the Army Corps of Engineers to operate this process in total. The United States government does it all the time. That's why the Army Corps runs all of the construction projects for the Department of Defense. They actually know what they're looking for. The problem with everything that I've ever seen come out in most RFPs from every municipality, I've been awarded 3 state contracts for the state of Connecticut in the last 60 days, they're poorly written. And what happens is they're full of holes. And the holes is where people always charge way too much money, or they ask for change orders, or they create a report that gets filed away in a box because it doesn't actually do anything.
So, Jamie, are you saying that the Army Corps of Engineers would actually manage this project from the RFP request?
They get paid a consultant fee.
Yeah.
And basically they can manage it from the initial inception of taking the dredging report, and they work with Malone and McBroom. They could take the initial dredging report. They can find out from the town what the town would like to see long-term plan-wise. They can put together a scope of work. They can put together a plan. They can actually run the RFP out. They can do the contracting process because they're contract specialists, and they can execute the project. On an average government project, they get paid a 10% overhead fee on the total project. So we're building a $16 million hangar for the Air Force in Florida. The Army Corps is getting $1.6 million to totally manage that project, soup to nuts, from start to finish. It's a design build. So from the inception of the design standard all the way through the commissioning, testing, balancing, and turnover of the building. The Army Corps gets a fee to do that.
Does the lake have to be an Army Corps lake?
No. They're a hired gun. They're a mercenary with that.
Interesting.
But the thing is, back to my point, you get the people that know what they're talking about.
Yeah, because if us looking at RFPs come in, none of us know what the...
Because here's the thing. As good as Malone and McBroom is, I'd still be holding 25% of what they were supposed to be paid because they haven't delivered shit. Pardon the language.
They haven't delivered the final.
I've
But-
asked.
Pardon me?
I've asked.
But here's the thing.
Right.
Their initial schedule was terrible. Their detail was terrible. They never provided a detailed schedule of values of what they were going to put forth.
They haven't done a town
In
meeting
asking
either.
for a more detailed schedule from them, we never received it because I asked for it multiple times. I manage $100 million worth of construction projects a year. I kind of know what I'm looking for. They didn't deliver. I would hold 25% retainage on them in a heartbeat.
But they already paid him, Jameson.
But that's the thing. So ask the smart people about the things they know about. They should have never got 25% of their contract value until they delivered on everything they were supposed to be. The retainage is the only leverage you have as the contract administrator to get them to actually deliver. They may never deliver your final. Because why do they care if they're paid in full? And you're left holding the note.
Why did we pay him in full, Ernie?
The previous town administrator authorized it.
Gee,
You want to get
wish I
somebody
worked
to
for you
do
guys.
something, hold 25% of $90,000 on them until they give you the final piece of paper. They usually respond pretty quickly.
Yep.
Why
So-
don't you write me a proposal of what you want the Army Corps of Engineers as far as getting a quote, and I'll pass it by our purchasing with the state and see if they buy off with it. Because
That's not a bad idea. Can you do that, Jameson?
Sure. I mean, I know they manage construction projects for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They've taken over all construction in Vermont and New Hampshire for the State Air National Guard. It's not an unprecedented thing. We're moving about that far outside of the margin on this.
But dollar value project, construction project, they got a list of 5 criteria if it's over $150,000 that you must follow.
Mm-hmm.
So I like your idea of getting the
I've-
Army Corps of Engineers involved, but I don't want to go outside the law either.
Well, I have 3 open contracts with the state of Massachusetts right now. I mean, I know how it's pretty simple to do. So I'll give you anything you want, and I think, but the easiest thing to do is find out what they're capable of, which is very innocently me picking up the phone, calling the chief of construction up here, and saying, "Hey, what are the steps if we were looking at doing this?" You can move in the gray very easily.
And they're going to hand me this sheet of paper that says we have 4 criteria that we have to follow.
I'm going to see if they're even interested, because if the chief of construction said we're over project and we don't actually care about your little lake, then why are we going to waste the time of going down this long road with all these costs or potential, and by costs I mean people's time and effort, before you ask the question?
So ask him.
Ask-
That would, thank you.
So bottom line is, this is
But-
not, you guys don't feel like this should be on town meeting in May,
I
the
didn't say that.
causeway.
Knowing what I know about the finances this year, I don't think it is the timing.
Well, you know what, Ernie? It depends what happens with the Sickles project. If that falls through, then we've got.
Yeah.
Then, I guess I agree with Ernie to the extent that if we're looking for funding for the Stevens Brook / Sickles land, and we're asking for $100,000 for an engineering study, that's going to be tough politically.
Right, it's
I'm not
going to
saying
be
it's
tough overall, but I don't
But-
think putting this on the back burner because we might buy the Sickle property for trails. We've been talking
Well, no, it's
about,
not just for trails. We've got frontage on Stafford Road. We've got town.
right,
got
It's
a lot-
also the largest feed into the lake. Runs through that property,
right.
Stevens
But
Brook.
we don't have a problem with Stevens Brook.
Right, if he sells it to somebody else
Well,
for
that's
solar,
true.
then we're
That's true.
screwed.
That's true. That's a good point. I think it's very strange that Chris Howard wants to talk to me thoroughly about this because I have such an influence on the lake people. And there's, if we put this off, there's going to be a lot of people that are upset. So I
Well-
agree with Larry in a way that why can't we put it out there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say let's get going on the
All right.
on the due diligence process
And find out what it's got, I mean, what if we find out if it's only $50,000? Not that because I have no clue what it would cost,
Well,
engineering.
me neither.
But if we even, started to find out and start the process.
Because the other thing you get with the Corps being involved is they have the pipeline to the DEP, and if you're going to be affecting water, you're going to have the DEP crawling up you 6 ways to Sunday. So if the RFP goes out with the Corps stamp on it, and the Corps is the one communicating the requirements back and forth of what needs to be done, and the DEP is going to sign off. They're way more capable of signing off on the Corps,
Right,
and the Corps can always play the federal card over local,
Right.
state.
That's
So
true.
let somebody else do the fighting for you. And don't leave the holes in it where inevitably the town ends up having to backfill the costs.
right. So that's why I think we need to find out how much that's going to cost to do it, and then
Then what?
And this
Just how to put
estimate,
it on the
the
warrant.
estimate in Malone and McBroom may be based off of information that they've gathered from previous projects. It could be based off of RS means. If it's based off of RS means, it actually doesn't mean anything. Because RS means tells my tradesmen that they should be able to sheetrock this room in 6.5 hours. The reality of it is that ain't going to happen.
right.
But
Right,
in a
so-
perfect vacuum, it can happen. But I think you get the biggest bully you can, and you get him to fight for you.
Do we have time to get that information before warrants have to be in?
What do the warrants have to be?
March
in?
4th.
March 4th.
What?
Yep. That's what the boss said.
Yeah, I picked that date for a specific reason.
Is there any way to generate a placeholder to it?
Well, what I'm thinking is you can always pull an article from the warrant, or
Yes.
so. I mean,
how does that? Go ahead.
I don't know, but I know we've done it before. So I mean, I would say we can always no. Let me finish. We can always stop in midstream, okay? But I mean, I say let's keep moving forward with this until we hit a roadblock that we can't get over until something else happens. I mean, I say, let's keep moving with this so that we don't end up with a $100,000 report stuck
Sitting
in
on
the
the
file
shelf.
cabinet somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and the
So-
additional piece with the Corps is they potentially know federal funding for preservation and waterways. So if you have a town that owns a waterway, it's actually proactively taking steps to not only preserve it but enhance the feasibility and the life of it. There's a chance that somebody may step up and want to help fund
Our
that.
water goes into the Connecticut, what is it called? Thames River, which is
Yeah.
a very important
Which goes
piece.
into the
Right.
Long Island Sound.
So what's the answer?
I would say write a warrant that says we propose that the town borrow X number of dollars to perform engineering study on the causeway.
Yeah, I would say
Is that all it's
I
got to
would
say?
Jamie, can you contact the Army Corps of
Yeah.
Engineers and
I would
say,
keep the warrant as specifically vague and as vaguely specific as you can.
Well, we're just gonna
Specifically
have to
vague.
leave, I mean, we're not gonna be able to put the dollar amount in right now.
yeah, but you don't have to do that until town meeting.
Right.
So,
So town meeting is May 24th.
First.
You got that?
I don't know.
But you could, and you can write it with the
21st.
terminology
I don't
including
know.
but not limited to.
Okay, so
Third
what's the
Tuesday
word?
of the
Just
month.
leave it as open as possible.
Who's going to write the warrant? Janine, did you get that down?
I think that's the jurisdiction of the select board now.
I'll write it.
Thank you.
You got a lot of time in your hands.
Does somebody have a...
No, I don't anymore.
So it's the engineering of the repair of the causeway.
Okay.
Yes.
Repair or replacement.
Repair or replacing the causeway, right?
Or if you want to write it, send it.
I don't know how to write it. And
Well, it just came up with a few good words.
I warrant to hire an engineering firm.
To see if the town will approve.
Oof.
Are you writing it?
No.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
It's being recorded.
Is it I'm sorry.
To see if the town will approve.
To see if
X
the town will
amount of-
approve X amount of dollars for an engineering study of repair and or
Including but
replacement.
not limited to the repair and or replacement of. Because if you put in the including but not limited to, then all of a sudden if it says you need to do...
Are we talking about the causeway or are you
You
talking
decide
about
you want to put in a
causeway?
drop.
Causeway.
You left it open enough that you could put that in.
Ernie, do you mind writing it?
Didn't McBroom
I don't
say
mind, right.
that was
Please.
one of the
All right.
main issues with what's happening with the Senate?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a
Correct.
huge, it's a huge choke point.
It is.
It is.
And that,
And
you
it-
fix that and you get a
But they also
bottomless
gotta
culvert
determine
or
if
a box
there's
culvert,
enough
you raise it up,
access for
then you
flood.
got a flow.
Right. But
Well,
that's
right now,
what
if
we
you
need
had
to
a
do.
flood,
We're in trouble.
yeah, you're gonna wash. You're
Right.
gonna have no problem.
It's
in
gonna
about
wash
2
wet.
days into it because you're gonna wash out the causeway.
Didn't we have a problem with that back in 2005?
You did.
Yes.
Somebody got stranded, right?
Yeah.
You know, water seeks its own level, except here, because the water on the south is higher than the water on the north because it can't get out fast enough.
And the dredging study didn't
Right.
say anything about
Flooding.
And actually, after
I
reading
thought it did.
the dredging study, I think that involving the Corps and potentially dangling the carrot of the dredging, long-term effect is fantastic because if you look at what's in these bodies of water, you have no even trace heavy metals. You have zero pollutants within the scale. You have mostly organic material. And in 125 years, the shallow basin hasn't really dynamically changed. So if you have an organization that's dredges 200 plus million cubic yards of material a year and uses it in other projects, you have prime dredge material that potentially has an economic value. So if you have that and you already have the results, they don't have to do the feasibility of it. They don't have to do the testing. You have enough cores that you have an adequate sample size. It may be able to work as a credit toward the dredging program.
well, I think though, the beauty of this is that we could get going on the dredging project through the engineering or re-engineering of the causeway without actually doing the dredging. So in other words, we're starting to get a bang for our buck for the study
Right.
sooner rather than later, because if we're looking at dredging, we're looking at 10, 15 years down the road.
Well, right. And like we said, if we don't get the causeway fixed and the culverts and everything fixed beforehand, we're just wasting our money
Right,
on the
exactly.
dredging.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we learned in the 319 grant,
Yeah.
which is coming up in June, and we could write for a grant.
And honestly, the proposal of the dry dredging that they talked about is probably one of the most feasible things for the cove areas here, is the dry dredging.
All right.
And then you could focus your attention, the long-term dredging opportunity on the central body of the waters.
Let's tackle one
Yeah, one thing.
of the things.
No, but you can't tackle one thing at a time because you have to have a strategic plan of how you're going
Right,
to
but we're
maximize
gonna-
leverage to the next thing.
But the first
Well, what you're saying, though, would probably accomplish that is if we could get the Army Corps of Engineers involved. They have a strategic
Right.
perspective on.
But ultimately, what's going to happen is you're going to have when you work the culvert issue under the
The
causeway,
stormwater.
you're going to have a major drawdown, or else you're going to be spending a lot of money on
Right.
dry docking the area. And if you have a major drawdown, even though both sides of that culvert is some of the deepest areas except the mud hole, and you're still going to have to dry dock it, then you could engage the dry dredging almost simultaneously because you're going to be pulling the water level down significantly.
That sounds practical.
When they put in the fisherman's pier, they dry docked that area. So,
Just the area.
yeah, just that one area around where the
Because if the big objection about a larger drawdown is the few folks that have shallow wells. And that's always been an issue. I mean, when this board started, I remember talking about the Board of Selectmen was going to send out a letter and give people 5 years, and that was like over 5 years ago. But if they can do it in a way that we don't have to draw down the
Yeah, I
whole
mean,
lake.
the problem when you dry dock something, if you're dry docking a depth of 12 feet, you're driving pilings 8 to 10 feet into the substrate, and then you got to have them extend to a safe distance above the water line, and then you got to pump it out. If you are going to dry dock an area that's 6 feet deep, you don't have to use as big a piling, and the cost of driving it and managing it isn't as big.
All right, well, I'll get two motions then. Number one, I'd like to make a motion that Jamie contact the Army Corps of Engineers and come back to us with some preliminary information in terms of what they would be willing to do and how much it would cost.
You could include the stormwater management part of it, just
Motion.
to get a feel.
Motion.
Second.
Table.
You can't.
Why do we have to have a quorum if we can't vote?
You have to.
He's got a motion. He's got
He's got a motion, you can't add to his
Yeah.
motion.
Oh, okay.
I second.
Oh, that's what you meant.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can have a motion to addendum to it.
Aye.
Aye.
Second motion would be to ask Ernie to draft an article for the warrant, asking the town to fund the engineering costs of
The causeway.
the causeway.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
So that's what we would have to start for this year, and then next year.
We could
go-
look at
We
stormwater.
go for the
So the
money
other
to do it.
The other couple of things that we need to bring up is Dory's going to explain the dam inspection. She has some questions for you guys on that.
Okay, the dam inspection, do you know when the last time our dam was inspected? Because we're required.
2018.
18, all right, so we still have one more year to go? 'Cause
It's going to be inspected
every
in
2 years.
2020.
But don't we
You
have
sure it
to?
was 18?
Yes, I saw the report myself.
Yeah, I remember the report.
So Ernie, seeing we did it in 2018, we're going to do it in 2020. Doesn't that have to go to town meeting?
Has to go in the warrant.
I mean,
to
it's
pay
only
for
a
it.
$3,500 item.
Yeah, please.
Budget. It's in the budget.
It's in the budget?
It's in the budget. Is it in the budget?
It's in the
Okay.
budget.
Is it in the budget? Okay,
So
okay.
is that it? Okay.
Yeah, that's what we need
We
to
should
know, is
take
if it
a
was in the
swap and
budget or
take
not.
That's
That was the
right.
whole
I keep
thing,
saying.
yeah.
Are you still doing those?
Now, is
Okay.
it coming from the stabilization fund? Is that where it's coming from?
That's what-
No, it's coming from the
It's
general
coming-
fund.
Or from the general
Okay.
fund, okay. But if there's any overrun, it would come from stabilization then?
No, it'll probably have to come from reserves.
Okay.
All right, the third thing is the weed contract. And that ends this year, December 2019. You were-
December? Did you say?
December 2019, this year.
Okay. Well, I was calendar or fiscal, that's all I,
Well,
that's fine.
we go physical, they go calendar. So, I already gave Janine the budget for this year.
I mean, fiscal?
Fiscal.
Say that
What did I
again.
say?
You said physical. That would be the actual calendar.
Right.
You gave me a budget?
You guys know what I was talking about. I gave you the budget for the weed treatment already, based on us doing water quality and if there's
32,000.
any extra weeds that might have to be
Now,
done.
we should talk about this.
It's
I put in
listed.
that.
So,
It's listed as the recommendation from the BOS. in the
Right.
Finance budget. What's the finance budget is going to do for a recommendation? I don't know.
as long as
yet.
we can cover milfoil, I'm happy. But so there was discussion last time that we go for a 1-year contract, but we could do a 3-year contract, but then we have to go through the bidding process. And
You got to go through the bidding process no matter what.
Why?
No, because
because of the dollar value.
but with 3 years, you're taking 3 years worth of expenses, which brings it over.
Yeah, but it's 32,000 a
a
year.
year.
Yes.
No, I thought it was 32,000 for the length of the contract.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's 30. Well, it was 29,000. Remember when we started it last year? It was 29,000.
9,000.
Is there anything in Mass state contracts that the state has gone out to bid for this and the town can piggyback off of this?
No, I don't think so.
Don't say no unless you actually know that it's a no.
I don't believe so.
Okay, so
The town is doing a contract. It has to follow the state bidding process.
There are
understood.
loopholes. If it's a Board of Health issue, then it can roll over. You don't have to go through the process. It depends. If we're talking about the weed,
Weed contract.
is that a Board of Health issue?
Yeah, if we test
Well,
for
the
blue
water
green
quality
algae, it is.
testing is. Part of it
The
is.
question
Like
that I'm
those
asking is that in the state of Connecticut,
I don't
when
believe
the state of Connecticut issues a state contract, so the contract that I was awarded last week was for Connecticut Tourism for warehousing and distribution of materials. Any of the 169 fiefdoms, towns, cities, and fiefdoms in the state of Connecticut can piggyback off of that state contract and utilize that provider or those providers listed in that contract without actually going out to bid. So there's a state contract for small tools and equipment, there's a state contract for Freightliner trucks, there's a state contract for Freightliner school buses, there's a state contract for warehousing and distribution, there's a state contract for basically anything. If you look through the state contract listings and you find one that has to do with water quality testing, and it's broadly specific of what's in there, you can actually engage on that state contract at that pricing if it's better than yours without actually going out to bid in the state of Connecticut.
All right, so in a way,
Hold on 1 second, Chris. I spoke to Mass DEP 2 days ago.
Mhm.
We were just talking about this. If it's going to be a Board of Health issue hazard, it can bypass Chapter 30B.
you could do that.
I will make a quote from the former LOC Board of Health representative who said we don't test for blue-green algae in the event that we might find
Well,
it. So it is a
However,
Board of
the
Health
we-
issue because we're only testing for certain things because we only want to find potentially certain things.
if we allow
If
the
I find it in print and it is a hazard, then it would bypass Chapter 30 rules.
the
That's
water
fact.
quality testing definitely. If we don't take care of the weed treatment, the oxygen level in the lake is bad for the fish. It's bad for us.
There's
Board
no
of Health
swimming.
issue.
There's no swimming.
Okay, so then that is a potential
to
hazard.
make-
Let me talk to the Board of Health. Let me do a little bit of digging, but I think we
But
could
But-
circumvent it.
But if you bypass the 32 for quotes, you still have to get somebody to do it.
But that's
Well,
why.
And if
the-
there's a state contract that turns out better, fine. But
yeah, that's why in the Connecticut DAS,
But you take the other thing we've done in the past with the RFP, and I can't remember the word it's called, but it's not a price issue. There's other criteria within the RFP that the contractor has to meet. And there's only 2 vendors in this whole area, Solitude and some little place in
you
Connecticut.
have to prove that the vendor is responsive and responsible. So if you can prove that the other vendor is not responsive or not responsible with a statement, you can go with the other vendor.
Well, right now we're on a 3-year contract, right? And then we
Yes.
go out every 3 years.
We
get-
gotta put it to town meeting now for 2020.
Yeah, but
The first treatment will be in June 2020.
but if 32,000 passes in the budget, you're set.
For this year. We don't have a contract for next year.
Well,
this would
you
go-
have to.
No,
You have the
but
money,
We're still
but you
good till
get.
June.
You're still good to June.
You're still good till June.
Right,
Because
Oh, you're right.
we go from July to the end of June.
right.
And the
But
other-
their contract ends 2019,
When in 2009?
the end of the year,
December.
December.
31st. So that's this December. There won't be a contract for June 2020. Our years there would be, but not with them.
Yeah, you have to get a contract.
Right. Now, I talked to Solitude, and he did not think that if we went with a 1-year contract, that the price would be that much different to us.
Well, different, but is it
But
better
if
for a
it's
3-year contract?
Right, right.
Well, you could also do it with
Did you
a
find-
performance base in it,
The RFP.
and
No.
and allow an award of a second year of performance.
Did you
in it.
look?
Yeah, I did.
But in the budget, if the
Yeah, I
32,000
went
is
through
already
everything to see if we
in
could
there,
find
that covers it.
Yeah.
We just have to get the stuff written, so,
We have to get a contract.
well, we have to get a
Who's gonna do-
contract.
Yeah.
Right, we have to get a contract, but I'm saying we don't have to have it for town meeting.
No, you don't need the
No,
contract.
the
for
warrant's
town meeting.
there. You don't
Yeah,
need
yeah,
anything
right,
for town
right,
meeting.
no.
Right.
And what's the problem with what would, are you recommending that we circumvent the RFP process?
If we can.
Why? Because to me,
Because my-
wait, let me finish. To me, it's part of our due diligence requirements as a town
Right.
to review vendors on a periodic basis to make sure they're continuing to be priced competitively,
Right.
and that they're doing the job that we want them to do. To me, from a fiduciary perspective, it makes sense to
To do
stay
it.
with where we are right now, a 3-year contract, go through the RFP process once every 3 years.
With the exception of the fact that you get somebody that had a DAS award for the state, because then they're bidding it on a state level, which they're going to be much more aggressive with their pricing, and you don't have to waste the time, the effort, and the expense to go through the RFP process.
Right, but we'd have to find out what the state has, if there is anything like that first.
And if you go to
And how are we going to know whether or not?
So, and I'll tell you, in Massachusetts, having sold municipal equipment here, we used to piggyback contracts for customers out of our Worcester office. We used to piggyback contracts off the Boston Police Union. They had some of the most aggressive pricing for things that they never even needed, but because they were who they were, they would put everything out to bid, and they would get rock bottom pricing in case they ever needed something.
So the LOC ought to go out and research that.
Research.
What is around for state bids and what's the best for the town?
Because the LOC doesn't have the town access to get on the DAS.
You can look at the mass list.
We
We
just told me
report-
there is no mass list,
we
and there
report
is no
to you
contract for
guys.
that. Everybody spoke very, very.
I
Now all of a
says,
sudden
I
you're telling me how to
don't
do
know.
it.
He said he didn't know what was there.
There.
I wouldn't even know where to start.
Combats?
Yes.
And actually, I don't want to do it.
What?
If someone else within the board wants to do it, that would be fine. But
It's come-
who isn't?
come-
Well, actually, we're
Combats.
living up to our responsibility of being merely advisory. So,
Right. I mean, I can find the old RFP that we
We'll look
sent
for
out.
state contracts.
So you're going it's compass?
Combines.
Combines.
If you want one of us to sit with you, one of us could do that if that would be helpful.
We'll look. We'll look.
I will look.
Or
for,
Jeanine will look.
I will look.
yeah,
for,
I'm showing
it's
needs
DAS in
assistance.
Connecticut and
I'm
it's Sam
flat out
and
upstairs.
I can.
it's DAS in Connecticut and it's
It's
Sam
Sam.
federally.
so Dory's volunteered to help Janine with it. When the hell are you going to do
I'll figure out a time.
it? Okay.
But actually, there's probably precedent that we could piggyback.
I
off
will look
state-
for the
Connecticut state
RFP,
contract,
and
because can do
you
that
guys
from
couldn't
state
find
to
the
state,
RFP
too.
upstairs, a
No.
hard copy of it.
So if there was one.
What about a
Did
file?
you ever find it, Janine?
Because
Remember
that
when
part
we
is-
were digging a file?
That actually makes it easier.
Oh, for the
but
contract?
We
Yeah.
WHOs
I
in
did
Connecticut
not.
used to piggyback off the Boston Police Union.
I think I have it in
Pricing,
my
because
LOC
we could buy through
folders.
their
If you
contract
find it,
because
can I please have a
municipalities
copy of
have
it?
Didn't I send it to you?
municipalities
What did I send
have reciprocals.
you? Okay, we'll talk about it. When you go up to conservation
I
tonight,
received an email from Solitude. I think
I'll
they're
walk up
looking
with you,
for a
but there's a
readable-
file
had
up
a
there
meeting
of
together.
our stuff, and maybe it's in there because Lynn wrote it.
We have, this is all we got.
Okay.
All right, so it says
Well,
one
I'm
last-
going to leave because I have to go to a planning board meeting.
Oh, okay. We still have a
Don't you
quorum,
one
right?
too?
I'll
Yeah,
pop
so
up there when we're done.
Kick ass up there.
All right, the other okay. So we've
Kick
gotten
ass up
through.
there.
Right, so the last part is
The last part is
the board itself.
Okay.
our responsibilities.
Well, more than our responsibilities. I think one of our concerns at our last meeting is actually being recognized as an actual board. I mean, that's why, I'm willing to help Janine and do whatever, but if we were recognized as a real board and not just a group of people that meet twice a month,
are
then we
advisory.
could do more rather than coming to you saying, can you do this for us? Because we don't have access, we can't do it. So I guess we're asking, how do you perceive us? You know, do you look at us as a board where when we bring things to you that we really are the voice of the people, or are we just a group of people that meet twice a month?
Well, I don't know about you, Ernie, but I think my thought about the where the LOC stands in the hierarchy of boards and committees has changed. I had originally recommended that you guys are an advisory, or we are an advisory board to the select board. But in the 2 or 3 years that has been in place, I think that it's just too cumbersome to work with you guys as an advisory board, coming to the select board periodically, asking the select board to make final decisions. I've evolved to the point where I would envision the LOC to be set up similar to the ZBA, where the members of the LOC are appointed by the select board, but you're an independent standalone committee or board. That's what my position is, because it just doesn't seem to be working the way we have it structured.
How do you feel, Ernie?
What do you think?
As a standalone commission?
Committee.
What's going to change?
If we don't have any authority, we can do all this work, but we got to bring it to you. I personally think
Yeah, but when you're a board, where are you going to bring it to?
we're not, and we don't get the support. If we don't get the support of the Board of Health and the Highway Department, which are the two biggest committees or boards that we need to speak to, we don't get their help, we're going to you. I personally think we should stay advisory, because then we don't have, I do. Because I don't, because I
That wasn't
think,
what we talked about,
it's
Chris.
just, I know, I've thought about it though. I've thought,
Wow.
I mean, it's up to you guys, but.
Okay.
Why? Because
See, I thought at the meeting that we had last week, we talked about
because you think the select board has more leverage in terms of pushing the highway department and Board of Health.
I do.
Um,
Although,
I
I
don't think
mean,
so.
you don't have any leverage over an elected official, but, you know, if we start projects like the Causeway or stormwater management, we need Brian. And we need Board of Health if we run into a problem like last year with the blue-green algae that was suspected on our side of the lake. And I'm arguing with the Board of Health for a $140 test. Because he didn't think his driver was going to make
I
it.
think we're kind of bouncing around again.
We
We're
are.
Kind of,
yeah, bring us back in, please.
so one of the things that we had suggested is when we already talked about doing quarterly meetings with you guys, which I think is a good thing, and more joint meetings if we need to. But during those meetings, I would like that we require a representative of Highway and Board of Health to be there if we're talking about issues that
Pertain to
involve
them.
those boards as well. That way, their representation can be here, and then we can all discuss it as a group instead of kind of having you guys talk to them or us email them, or like communication is kind of all over the place. And I think that's one good solution.
That's one thing that's very poor in this town is communication,
Right. Yes,
or
this
poor in any organization. And we would be happy to invite whoever you want, Board of Health, Highway, but I can't guarantee they're going to show up.
And you can't require them to show up either. They're elected officials. You can't require them. But I agree with your overall observation, which is that when different boards need to be involved in these issues, it may be tangential to the highway department or to the Board of Health, but
I guess
it's
my
important to
question
the
is-
town to get things done.
If we have a joint meeting and we have an issue like say blue-green algae and we invite Board of Health to discuss it, they don't show up, then can we have the authority to make that decision for them and they have their chance?
I don't think so.
Essentially.
I don't think so.
No.
I mean, I think it's pretty clear in terms of the roles and responsibilities of each board.
And I
committee.
guess that's where us as a board have come with lots of frustration because we don't really know what we're doing here. We can come to you guys with all these great suggestions that we're blue in the face, but if we're depending on Highway or Board of Health to give the okay, then what are we doing here?
Yeah, when I first started on LOC, like we were taking information from the masses and sort of categorizing it and neatly presenting it, and then upstreaming it, and then it was just poof.
Did they,
Nothing happened from it.
did they replace Val on Board of Health?
Can't?
It's elected. So there's just the
Selected.
two of them up there?
Yep.
So the LOC, if this were a standalone board and felt that there needed to be a specific test done on the water, could just go ahead and do it.
Exactly, and you don't have to go to the select board
So you
to
don't
make a
have to
final
go to
decision.
the-
Right.
Yeah, who's going to pay for it?
If we're a
HRA
standalone board,
every
then we
time.
would have funding.
If
we
we're
were
if we're
an actual
standard,
board,
would we
then we
have
would have
No,
funding?
we-
Would
if
we
you were
have a
actual
budget?
board, you could get funded.
And then we
Right.
could
For-
take an emergency test if we felt like one needed to be taken.
If we had the budget,
Well,
Well, we gotta become
right,
a board first.
I don't know what kind of a budget
I guess,
have.
from what I see, if you were an independent board, you'd go to the finance committee with your budget for the following year,
Okay.
Sure.
and they'd make a recommendation.
So in a way, I think that would really be too, if we
but-
had the whole town
Yeah,
Right.
for us to be
But-
able to do things like that.
That's a town meeting.
yeah, that is a town meeting.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it gets funded at the town meeting. But
Or even the.
but I want to hear the but. Larry.
But are you going to come and ask for
$1 million?
$5,000 stipend for all the members?
No, I
No.
think we
No,
should
absolutely
get a
not. Actually,
stipend
in our
of some
conversation,
sort.
we said we weren't
I
going
don't
to take a
think we need a
stipend.
stipend.
Well, wait, I do. I
Again,
do
Chris,
only
say-
because if we're going to be doing all this work, guys, it's not right that we're a volunteer
I
group.
think we
Well,
took
I
a
would-
vote and we voted not to
Yeah,
take
and I
a
would say
stipend.
for
Okay.
the first.
Right?
Okay,
Why
so
does
you're
we
not
have-
going to do it for the first year.
Why
Then
does
you're
we-
going to come back and ask
Well,
for a
what's the
stipend.
big deal?
Well, I don't know what you're
The
doing next year
Conservation
either.
makes $500 a year, and half of it goes to the town anyway. So it's you're right. They voted on it not to put it in a stipend. Whether that happens down the road, I don't know.
It's in there.
The-
It's we don't have a stipend, but we would have
Well,
a
Yeah,
budget.
but I asked for it. You told me to put it in there. I put it in
Nah,
there.
there's no stipend.
There's no stipend for us, hon.
There's no stipend.
I said we were going to maybe write for one.
I put it in with the amount.
With the what? 32,000.
Mhm.
That's why it's 32,000.
I thought that we said 29.
Yeah,
It was. And then I
Oh.
was asked.
Oh,
to put-
what- so
Thank
now what
you.
do
We just
do?
found $3,000 to cut.
All right, so it is
So
only
that would be a
29.
nice
It's
start
always
for our
Ernie, right?
budget,
It's always been 29.
Yes.
Are you
even with the
making
water
that
quality.
Yes.
decisions?
No, but I didn't mean it that way. I said we were going to try to write. We were going to talk about a stipend.
The last time I talked to you, you said put in for 32. I'm putting in for stipends. I wouldn't just.
I'm sorry if
would
I
I
did
just
that.
do that? I wouldn't
No,
just
you
do
probably
it.
wouldn't do that.
You just lost $3,000 in your
As
maintenance.
long as we can cover weed treatment, I really don't care.
I think
All
we're
right,
getting
the-
into more details than we
They
need to.
voted
Yeah.
on, but if we were a standalone, we would have a budget to
Right.
cover something like
An
the
emergency.
health department
water-
not wanting to do
Right.
But-
blue-green algae.
But those tests are getting covered now, so where do we cut?
Yeah, but-
Where do we move it from
Well,
one place
last
to the
year,
other?
to be honest, last year Dave
Well, you
was.
just found $3,000. You could start there.
That's a good
Right,
point.
yeah.
Well, we've might have already been thinking about cutting it.
Why don't you just leave it there in case? Because he asked me, well, why doesn't the HRA pay it? I says, why should we? You have budget for this. And if it's just a matter, I bargained with him. If it's just a matter of Tom getting to, I think it was Bristol, Connecticut by 4 o'clock. It was only 2 o'clock. It's a 40-minute drive. They made it. But
And if that was really blue-green algae, that could have been a major liability. on the
one
part
little
of the
kid
town.
got sick.
Yeah.
I got an infection from swimming in the water, and
Yeah, but it turned out it wasn't blue-green algae.
that's what I was told. But Tom
Well, I mean, I
thought it
think-
was.
Yeah, but if you got a lump, do you get a biopsy? You go, "Yeah, it doesn't look like cancer."
So where are we
No,
going
but
on?
certainly-
Okay, so
Where are we going on this?
do we write a warrant? Do we want to write a warrant for a standalone committee? That was something we discussed.
Right.
Right, and what kind of a budget would we think, you being,
I would think the
The more
$3,000 that,
but do you need more than that? 'Cause, I mean, 3,000,
Well,
I
the
think-
budget money would cover writing for RFPs and budget and stamps and sending stuff out, or is that going to come out of you guys?
Well, if you had a standalone committee, it would come out of
it
you.
would come out of our own budget.
Yeah, we'd fund a
What is,
budget.
Right.
We'd fund a budget for you.
Right.
So we need the weed treatment money, and we probably would need.
Well, would the weed treatment go under our budget? Isn't that still like a town?
Yeah, we'd
thing?
move
It'd
it
be
from.
your
It would be
budget.
ours.
Right.
It'd be a request of the town to fund it under
Right.
your
What
budget.
does conservation get other than their stipend?
I don't know, 1,500 or,
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not much.
It's not much.
What,
So
for
let's ask
select
for,
board?
let's ask for the 30,000 for the weed treatment and another
32.
1,500.
Yeah, 30.
Well, just keep it the way it is.
But
Just keep it the way it's presented.
If I were you.
we have to figure out how the bylaws have
Right.
to
Leave
change.
it the way it is.
Yeah.
Right.
She says
But,
leave it the way
I mean,
it is.
I think,
The
And that
budget.
gives us,
well,
If
no,
they
I-
take it away, it's gonna be
Yeah.
very difficult to get it
Yeah.
back.
Right.
And if we don't use it, it comes back to you anyway. Right?
Yes,
Yes,
but you'll get that amount every year.
Right.
maybe.
If they vote us.
If the selectmen and the town votes to fund it.
That's
well,
what I'm assuming.
all right, well, gee,
So what do we
I'm
have
just
to do,
saying,
Larry, to
you get it
become a
off,
board?
it's hard to
well, I
get
think the
back.
first thing is that the Board of Selectmen has to endorse the warrant.
Correct, okay.
And we put the warrant on the,
Okay.
I mean, the article on the warrant for
Okay.
town meeting. think.
Yeah, I think it just has to,
Are you going to do that?
I'll do that warrant, yeah, I'll do that.
Because
article.
what we pulled off the,
Well, wait, we haven't voted on whether to do it
They're
yet.
gonna vote on it.
Can you guys vote?
I make a,
Yeah, we
can
got
I
it.
make
Yeah.
a motion?
We make, the select board
The select board
has
has
to
to make.
approve all articles,
Right,
So
except
I'm,
for what, finance?
go ahead.
We
so,
approve all the articles, that's why I made March 5th.
so I'd like to make a motion to draft an article for the town warrant meeting to make the LOC an independent board.
I guess I'd like to say modify the bylaws to make, I mean,
Yeah, same thing, yeah, okay,
That's what he meant.
yeah.
You know.
You know what I mean?
yeah. Second. All
So-
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So Janine,
Wait a minute. Nope.
Hold on.
the stuff that we pulled from
No,
bylaws.
Chris, hold on, I
Oh,
gotta get this
she's
motion
still
proper.
Okay. Here.
Bear with me one second.
These are the bylaws we pulled, me and Janine the other day, but it's not the right writing for us to be a
Independent
standalone.
board.
We didn't find it.
It's not there in the bylaw.
Yeah, we're good.
Well, we
I'm gonna
voted
need to go
down.
through the bylaws and see how this change should be
Did Lynn give
puzzled
it to
into
you?
this.
Ernie, what did you say, what amendment did you make to the motion?
That we modify the bylaws
Bylaws.
Can I have this, Chris?
to make
Yeah.
the
I
LOC
don't need it, but if you-
an
No, I don't need
independent
it.
Okay.
We
committee.
pulled it.
Thank you.
I got a couple of questions for you guys.
Yes.
How'd you like to take on a couple projects?
If we become standalone,
Well,
maybe.
that's a wide open question.
What kind of
Oh,
project?
More specific.
That stipend just went up.
Well, I got one project already with Janine, but
Yeah.
We'd like to see I would like to see the Lake Oversight have a workout committee and trim the weeds below the dam.
Isn't that the highway supposed to do
it's the
that?
highway department's responsibility.
They won't do it.
So are you looking for a volunteer group to
I don't
do that?
understand. it.
I'm looking for the LOC to volunteer to clean up the weeds below the dam and save us $1,000 or $1,500.
Does it have to be LOC? Can it be HRA?
It could be anybody.
Yeah,
Preferably HRC.
And what kind of weeds are they?
Poison ivy.
They're the ones with the red beads mostly, beans,
The
berries.
The,
Berries.
The
What do you-
one that came from Japan or?
the ones that kill all the trees?
Yeah.
The prickly ones.
No, they're
Why
not.
isn't the highway department doing it?
We can't succeed in making them do it.
Well, we could hire.
It's in the
We-
budget for $1,500, but
So we get the budget for that?
half of it.
What do you guys think?
I think you should put it out to the HRA.
Yeah.
Ask for work.
A volunteer?
A volunteer work day.
But some of us have to be part of that. Don't you think?
I mean, I'll volunteer.
It's going to be the
because
same
that's
handful of people that are going to do it that have done
That's
everything
true.
else. So
Can we look at it first
Sure.
before we commit to that?
Yes.
Because if it's... All right.
I got another one.
Oh, Jesus.
anybody that participates gets a free entry into one of the HRA events.
Write
You get to use our boat launch for free.
a operation and maintenance manual for the gateway on the dam.
Oh, I don't think you guys could do
I
that.
don't think I could do that.
That's an
Kinda need a-
engineering
Do you
thing.
know who the
Yeah.
manufacturer of the gateway is?
No.
When
Let
the
me check with
inspection
Lynn.
is
Lynn
done,
may
though?
already have something like that. Let me check with Lynn.
That was a recommendation out of the dam study,
Yes.
and we haven't completed it.
All right, let me check with Lynn and see if there is something
What
that she
year was
has from
that?
the past.
2008. Oh, I have no idea.
Can we get a copy of the
1986?
2018 dam report? Or the section that you're talking about anyway?
Yeah.
Phase one?
The front recommendation letter, the
Yahu
front,
might be able to help us.
That you and I
too,
looked at?
Susan
Yeah.
Gilbert.
Gotcha.
it's
Yep.
that
Let me
first
ask Lynn if
page
there's
sent
something
to
that
them.
already
That's phase
exists. I
one.
think there
But
is something that
don't
does
they
exist.
Don't they do
I
an
think there is.
inspection every?
2 years.
Every
Yeah,
2
but what he's
years?
talking about is an
So-
O&M manual for the actual
Especially now
physical
that we're
gate
seeing-
itself. Just like
Yeah.
there's an
Oh,
O&M
yeah.
manual for the
We're
air
not yet
conditioning
set
unit
up.
Do we have a
outside.
dam?
I didn't lack
Are you talking about the gate that he opens?
Yeah, you turn the gate
I know.
counterclockwise to raise it.
I
You
know,
turn it
I know. He
to
showed me
lower
in Lynn
it.
once. I got poison
You know,
ivy.
that's
I'll take
2
care of it.
sentences.
What is I'm gonna ask.
And the
Preston
maintenance,
O'Neill, too.
you grease the boards once a year?
I'll check. I think Lynn said that when I was on the planning board with Lynn, I think she said there was something.
I'm looking at this as the one-page
I think there was.
document.
Okay, let's get back to the
Did she talk
agenda.
about that once at one of our
In the
meetings?
far back of my mind, I remember
Phase one.
something
I
about
do
it. Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Can we
I'll
get
check
back
with
to
Lynn.
the agenda because there's still a few
other
things.
one.
I thought we were.
I just have one question about that specific thing. When they do the inspection,
Mission statement.
wouldn't they say, okay, this and this and this needs to be looked at?
Yeah, that
Is
was
that-
their
okay.
recommendation, that you need to have a
Operational.
operation and maintenance manual for the dam.
Yeah.
That was their recommendation.
Don't we have one?
No, not that I know of.
I think we do have an old one.
Wouldn't that be
I
part
think we
of, part
do.
of the EAP?
All right, we're gonna find it.
I'll
Please, let's
check
go
with
back
Lynn.
to the
Lynn,
agenda.
Do you have the
Alright.
original as-built to the dam? The as-built drawings?
Yeah. I'll take
What?
The
If you have the
as-built.
original as-built drawings to the dam,
We should.
O&Ms would be attached to that.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Who
Well-
has them?
The
Planning
emergency
board?
action plan, I think, would need it.
Right. Yeah.
We have to have it.
There's
I
got to
would
be
find
something.
it very odd that we have
Yeah.
all these reports and we don't have.
They were in the cellar and burned.
That's the convenient answer to everything.
Okay.
I know, that's the beauty of having
Dory's
town
got
hall
copies.
burned
I'll
down.
check on
Should happen every 10
I
years.
think
Yeah, I
Lynn
know.
has a copy of that.
You don't have it, it's burned down.
I'm pretty sure she does.
All right,
Okay.
Moving on.
So we've talked about the feasibility study. We've talked about number 5. We've talked about number 4. We're going backwards. So we came up with a new mission statement, which states
Who's the chair?
Me.
Jameson.
Jameson's the
You need
chair.
to rule that you're taking the agenda items out of order if you're going to be technical.
Go.
Please do
So
so.
we take the agenda items out of order.
Thank you.
You got it.
Good executive call.
Thank you for that advice. See, we're not, we're just a bunch
If you're
of.
going to be an official committee, you're going to have to be.
Yeah, you're gonna have to.
Well,
we're gonna
you're
have to
the
find it.
official
have
chair.
to have
I'm
Robert
doing
right
this
on the
meeting.
All right, what's
You can
next?
listen. LOC is an organization that exists to provide concise, organized, and a prioritized voice for the town of Holland, and to protect, preserve, and guard the health and well-being of the lake environment and the community. That's our new mission statement. You okay with it?
fine.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Good. The other, when I passed out,
Oh yeah, you gave that to me.
yeah, I don't know, this may not be helpful in putting together a mission statement. Do you have that?
I don't have it. Thank you.
I don't
But
know.
that
Let me
came
see.
right,
You
You
gave
had
me
a-
one.
you had a
I got a
staff
bunch,
one. You had a staff one.
yeah.
We'll
I mean,
just
what-
get rid of that.
Is that them?
This came right out of the annual report from last year, right? Remember, I was saying that I kept the
I kept that mission statement in this year's.
but I remember saying that the bylaws included more details than it actually did. What I was thinking about was this. So this is just for informational purposes only. You may be able to use some of it in putting together some initial documentation of assuming that you become an independent standalone
Oh,
committee
to
this
speak
week.
at the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna have to have a meeting on the warrants have to be in by the 4th. Your meeting is the 5th. We're gonna have
I'll
to.
give it to you till the 5th. I'll give you an extra day.
Okay.
because I need
Well,
to
they're
prepare
gonna be
them.
writing them.
I have to prepare them though, so
Oh,
I need
okay.
time to do that. I don't want to get them last minute, but if you absolutely have to get it to me last minute, I'll allow it.
All right. Well, Ernie's doing that. Yeah, Ernie's doing one, and who's doing the other
I'm
one?
doing
We're
the other
doing the
one.
other one.
And
we don't have to worry-
Don't tell anybody I'm doing that.
No, I won't. Okay. So then we also talked about what our expectations are you and what your expectations are of us.
You just got my expectations.
Right. You want to take that, Kate? See when you're looking at it? No, I'm tired. Roles and responsibilities. I believe.
Well, like I said before, a lot of things we talked about was like how can we more efficiently communicate with you guys and with other boards, and I think us becoming our own independent board will go a long way towards that because we kind of have a little bit more, I guess, I don't want to say teeth, but we have a little bit more power and a say than just saying like, we think you should do this, and then we disappear into the woodwork. So I do think that would go a long way into making us more legitimate to maybe other boards as well.
And we also thought we would, one of the ways we could communicate if we don't become a standalone board is to submit our minutes to you all, which I thought all boards did that, but evidently they don't.
I think
They go to the town clerk.
I know, but I mean, we used to put our minutes, conservation minutes, in everybody's box. Because we thought that's what we had to do. Is there a basket over there?
No, you don't.
It's over there.
You don't have to do
by,
that.
by the door.
If you want to post it online, then you give them to the town clerk.
So that's what we got to do. With
Yeah, I
our
sent
minutes.
the other 1 minute to Ginger already. And to the end, that's why we created a new mission statement, because most of this board is new, so we're like, what exactly is our purpose and why are we here? So that's why we were brainstorming at the last meeting and came up with a more concise mission statement to say, like, this is what we are as a board and this is why we are here. Going forward the next year, we already talked about the causeway, but we also want to focus on part 2, which is stormwater management. And Chris already mentioned the 319 grant, and I think that would be the next step of us as a board to address the other things that were in the feasibility study, which is the runoff into the lake. There's no point in dredging at all unless we address what's going into the lake. So, like Jameson said, it's 5, 10, 15-year plan. So step 1, pick a road, work on that road. Pick another road, work on that other road. So the 319 grant that's coming up, I think we wanted to look
It comes
into,
up in
right?
June,
Do you have the mission statement in writing?
Yes, it's on our minutes. Which are not
Actually,
approved,
starting
they're
with the
not
causeway,
online.
you're starting with like
So you want it-
the public road.
We're not going to use
Well,
any of
the
last.
other
it's gotta
intention
be a
too is
public
starting.
Yeah.
The other intention
Which-
was starting
what road
with
is
the.
What's that?
What road is it?
Well, the Mashpog Road with the causeway is a public road. That's that's the public road in this town.
Well, the other intention with starting the causeway is because it's a public road and people can see it. So it's our hope to kind of give more public awareness out there as to what's going on and why we're doing it. Because not everybody even knows we did a feasibility study or that there is any issues happening. So it kind of puts it in the public eye front. No one's going to miss that we're redoing the causeway.
And victories are big.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't want people to think, well, they're just lake people worried about the lake. We're worried about the entire town and how it affects the entire town.
Yes.
I think that
If you
was our
got new
biggest
cement
purpose.
posts and new cables on the causeway, everybody
I know, huh?
would be happy.
I know, huh? One of these days, we're going to end up in that water. I know we are. Someone is.
Yeah.
It's frightening. It really is.
Yeah, somebody's
Well,
gonna
honestly-
come down Vinton and just go straight with no barriers.
And honestly, in the improvement of the causeway, you could actually put a sidewalk on either side
Yeah.
and make it legitimate for.
Yes, for
Fishermen.
some of the
Entity for
people that
fishing.
are fishing, because that's frightening too. I mean, I don't know how many
Well,
people
if
have almost been
they,
hit on that
if they
causeway.
engineer it correctly, they probably
Right.
would have a
Yeah, they
pathway
would have
there.
to.
Yeah.
So what are we looking at, 2 million?
Well,
3.
I don't even
Plus
know,
another
if we get state funding for it, we may have to put in at least a bike path anyways. And
Yeah.
get-
Oh, of course, we need another trail in town.
No, it's true. That's how we get the funding, is by
Yeah.
putting a bike path in there.
Exactly.
Oh, the bike paths are so dangerous.
But it gets you money.
But
Oh, thank you.
some people may think getting Mashpog Road finished to the center of town is more important.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, but it's a
as
safe,
someone who travels it every day, yes. But then again, I also got to cross the causeway to get to my house, so it's a two-part thing. It is.
you gotta
I
start
agree.
somewhere, and I think,
do.
Yeah.
and I think the causeway is more of a safety, immediate safety issue.
is.
Than some potholes on Mashpog Road.
And it's a giant, it's a giant asset to have that fixed and everybody sees it. People will
Yes.
use
It's a
it
focal
more.
point in
It is a
town.
most definite
Yeah.
focal point. It's a smart move
I think we
for
should
your
use
first
it.
action.
It is.
And I think we should use it as an educational opportunity for the
As
town
George
too. We should be
W.
posting
Bush
things
said,
around it.
strategic.
People are going to be complaining to you guys at
Strategic.
town hall. The road shut down, so we use this as an educational opportunity too for the town.
Yeah.
So
I think that the relationship between the lake folks and
Yes.
the non-lake folks is improved over the last year or two.
Especially if you make it more public use and access to it.
In the
So do you want
causeways,
the board to approve that mission statement? Is that why?
Yes,
you're-
please.
But you don't want to use any of the old one, you guys?
I think
No,
the
I
old
think
one's too
we
long.
like the new one.
Okay.
That's what we voted on,
That's what
so.
we
New day, new day.
motion to approve the revised mission statement.
Second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we gave them our expectations. You gave us a couple of your expectations. Is there any other expectations of
He
us?
set the bar just high enough you can trip over.
Just high enough.
Yeah.
All right,
All right. So
that's it.
these meetings are beneficial for sure.
I have a question that's kind of
I gotta
it kind of ties into everything. As you heard of my dissertation on the Army Corps, I like having someone else do the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And
So do
I also like to have things happen that don't cost you any money until someone develops a result. We've missed a number of opportunities with grants. I mean, we had Luke writing a grant for the LOC, and then Luke
But we can go upstairs
disappeared.
and make a couple.
He knows where Jimmy Hoffa is now because I think he's next to him. But what would the town think about entertaining putting out an RFP on a commission basis to hire a mercenary grant writer? Because grant writing is actually it's a documented science.
I thought
Yes, please.
I thought
So
we
if it-
had one or two.
Yeah,
If the town put out an RFP and said that, for grant awards of $X to X plus 10, the commission rate is this. For grants of this to this. So basically what happens is you sign on the services of somebody that's just going to go out and beat the trees for every potential grant that's out there that's applicable and write it. And there's a windfall of money that they could potentially gain. But the town wins too.
Well, believe it or not, there is an employee in this town that gets paid to write grants. We put it
Yeah,
in the
how's-
budget.
let me ask you a
2 years
question.
ago, she-
How's that working out?
What's her name?
Exactly.
Tell me what
Assessor.
her name is. In the assessor's office. I'm terrible with names.
What's her
Cindy
name?
Courier?
What's
Nope.
Joanne?
Joanne Higgins.
Is she an official grant writer for the
She
town?
actually, I think 3-4 years ago, we voted in to give her more money specifically to write grants for the town. There was more
When's her
money put
performance
into her
evaluation?
paycheck, yeah.
Because
And she, I don't
Wait a
think,
minute.
I
Where
think
is
she wrote
our
a highway
performance
safety
evaluation?
grant.
We'll just do it next week.
I think. But yeah,
So
she's
March-
actually, that's one
I
of
run
her
an HR company
responsibilities.
too. If the town
It was
needs
like
HR
3 years ago if
services.
you checked.
do you really?
What's the
3 or
first
4 years
Tuesday of
ago.
the
How do,
Janine,
going
when's
off
your
on a
next meeting?
tangent,
The
how do
fifth?
we evaluate a
So our
public
next meeting will be
employee,
the fifth.
elected
Guys.
official?
Marcia,
Joanne's
That's
not
a
elected.
problem.
Is that the
Yeah.
first
If
Tuesday?
you have a
First
That
if
was
you have
the
a hired
meeting
employee,
for us.
you
I
can.
know.
Gotta
Yes.
approve those articles. I mean,
So we don't
run
do that
through them,
either.
But I don't know.
But Joanne's not
Yeah,
elected.
yeah,
So-
executive session that.
Yeah.
Be aware of that.
But
well, they could come to our meeting.
And I
Oh,
think-
you're March.
I don't know
Although
what
I
time
think the
they're gonna be
responsibility for her performance
Just be
review
aware of
would
that.
be the.
So you get them.
Assessor.
If you get them to
Yes.
us, we can look them over.
Well,
Janine and
Actually-
I, excuse me, Jim, we're talking about the warrants that you guys are going to write. You're going to write the warrants. She's got to put them in, and we would like to review them. Our meeting is after your meeting.
No,
Tuesday,
they're
what?
gonna approve them to go in the report.
Right,
So
they're
then what-
approving them.
We're approving them so
It's
I
not our
can fire
warrants.
them off to the
So
lawyer.
what do you need us to give you for it?
No, you said you wanted a joint with them. I'm just letting you know.
We can't do a joint because they have the other thing.
when they write a draft, fire it off and give it eyeball.
Yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
All right, so they'll give us an eyeball via email.
Who's writing them?
I'm
He's writing one. He's writing one.
He's
Both
writing
need
to
to
stand
CC
alone.
Chris and LOC so they can put their stamp on it
And
and
you're
get it back
doing-
to me ASAP.
I'm doing the warrant for money for the engineering.
Okay, I'm freezing. I have to get a coat. I'll be right back.
So back to this grant writer thing. Like hire a mercenary on a commission basis.
No, it's a no lose situation. I guess the question is, I mean, I'm not real familiar with the grant writing process. Are there grant writers out there that work on a commission basis? Do you
Yeah,
know?
lot
I mean,
of them
a lot of them are like
They actually write the percentage in of what they would get off of the grant.
a lot of them are like photographers and reporters. They freelance, and they might write a grant for 3 different towns
Right.
for the same grant.
So-
It's all upside. So if you give them a 10%,
Right.
give them 10% of the total take on the grant, and they bring in $200,000. Yeah, they get paid $20,000, but it's $180,000 net positive
Well, that's
to the
what-
town.
Yeah.
That's what Pioneer Valley would do for us.
Absolutely.
They've done that before.
This-
You're talking
no,
about
it's
it.
sort of a no-brainer.
Right.
Yeah.
Finding somebody that's good and will accept those
There's a
terms.
couple of people that on our lake association that are interested in helping us. And
But if you put it out in the RFP
Right.
and you put it in as, someone comes through and they got 17 pages of grant awards that they've gotten on a number of different entities, and they're completely irrelevant, they might be able to know how to write a grant, but they don't know where to look for the things that we need to look for. You can award it on a best value, or you can award it on an IDIQ, which basically you award it to 5 or 6 different people and say, have at it, chums in the water.
Well, if they're working on a commission basis, the more
Yeah.
the better off we are as a
Yeah,
town.
as long as there are people that actually are certified grant writers that have, like you have a CPA, you have a certification. Like the certification is easy, check the box. But if you do it on an award basis
Seagull property.
and you do it on a commission basis,
They're gonna have a
the
meeting.
only thing you're out is writing the RFP.
Yeah.
I'm talking to
In
her.
the scope of services is your responsibility is to go out and seek grants, write, present. The town will facilitate through developing the information that's required in order to sustain and support your grant. And the commission is predicated on the total award.
No, that's,
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I can't poke a hole in any of that.
So I think that's something that should happen sooner rather than later, because we've missed. What have we missed in the last year?
319 grant you missed.
Yeah, we've missed a number of grants, and we've missed ones we don't even know exist.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Aye.
All those in favor is what you say?
All in favor?
Aye.
Do you want me to put it on
You want me
the
to shut
agenda
this off?
for